Good evening. My name is Princess Dipuo, the president of SACO, South African Royal Kingdoms Organization. I would like to make a disclaimer right at the beginning. In this channel, we are going to learn. We are going to learn the truth about who we are and move away from the lies that we have been told for so many centuries. It's been more than 400 years ever since the colonizers, the settlers settled on our land. Now, in the previous episodes, we did show that we made this disclaimer that if you are a person that is not willing to learn the truth, this is not your channel. If you're a person that is not willing to read, this is not your channel. If you're a person that is not willing to do research, this is not your channel. If you're a person that is not open-minded, this is not your channel. We did show that. Now, having said that, we again have shown in our previous episodes that we are going to be looking at religion, how religion was used as a weapon to enslave us and to colonize us. In the previous episode, we have shown that we are no longer slaves in chains, but we are slaves in the mind. Our minds have been corrupted. Our minds have been distorted. We grew up with lessons that were not truthful. We grew up with doctrines that were designed to enslave us. We have shown in our previous episodes that no European, no capitalist, no imperialist, no colonizer, no settler has ever had good intentions for Africans. When they came and they colonized us, and they settled on our land, they didn't have good intentions. We have shown in our previous episodes that Africa has everything. Africa has land, Africa has minerals, Africa has everything that the European wants and the European believe that they cannot do without. Yet they don't want to pay for it. They couldn't care to pay for it. They just want it for free. Now, we would like to ask you nicely to actually subscribe to our channel so that we can continue to bring you this important research that we're doing, and then we can continue broadcasting. So it would help us a lot if you can subscribe to our channel. That will go a long way in helping us. Now, let's get into it. We are going to be focusing on South Africa. In our previous episodes, we have shown that we are going to be looking at Egypt and Ethiopia purely because the Egyptians and the Ethiopians wrote their history down. The Asians wrote their history down. We didn't write down. However, if you go around and you go to the caves around South Africa, you will find the writings on the wall. And we have shown that there are three elements of religion. One element is symbols. The other element is myth. And the third one is rites. Now, when you go around South Africa and you look at the caves that we have, you will see that ancient Africans in South Africa used symbols to write their history. We didn't write it in scrolls like the Egyptians did, like the Ethiopians did. But as Africans, I would like you to go and read a book that is written by Dr. Chancellor Williams. It's called The Destruction of the African Civilization. Dr. Chancellor took 16 years in actually writing this book. He went to all the tribes across Africa. He interviewed everybody over a period of 16 years. And then he wrote his book. And what he has found is that across South Africa, the reason why colonizers had a difficulty in colonizing Africa, they had to take a long time. It's because in Africa, we had a universal democracy. Our laws were the same. Even if we had more than 2,000 different languages and we had tribes in different areas, but our customary laws, the fundamentals of our customary laws were the same. As a result, we had one democracy that existed within Africa. There was unity, although there were bits and pieces of fightings there and there, but we did have unity within African states. At that time, we didn't have borders. It was just Africa. Now, in our previous episodes, we have shown that Europe was actually ice during the Iron Age. There was no Europe. However, there was Africa. The first Europeans to actually go into Egypt actually were in the 833, and it was Holmes, the Greek Holmes, one of the Greek philosophers called Holmes. He's the first to actually go to Egypt to learn the African way of doing things. That was the first European to actually go to Africa. And then there followed others. And then what we call the Jews. Remember, there were no Jews before Abraham. And Abraham actually went to Egypt when Africa was in its 14th dynasty. That was the first time Abraham actually went to Egypt to learn about the African way of doing things. And remember, the Jews, their religion is based on Abraham. Even the Arabs, they're based on Abraham. So if Abraham actually went to Egypt when Africa was in its 14th dynasty, now it tells you which one of the two is the oldest religion. Now, in our previous episode, we have shown that Christianity actually started in Africa. We just didn't call it Christianity. We didn't have a name for it. It was our way of living. However, the Europeans came. They learned our way of living. And they went back to Europe. And they wrote it down. And they brought it back to us distorted. They literally took out the spirituality out of Christianity and made it a physical religion. We are spiritual people as Africans. That is why we are naturalists. We know God as part of nature, as part of the universe. Whereas Europeans, because their God is physical, God created the universe. Whereas in African terms, God is part of the universe. It's part of the nature. We are part of all that there is. Again, Europeans took Christianity and they changed it to Christendom. We have shown in our previous episode that the difference between Christianity and Christendom is that Christianity is a spiritual way of doing things, and Christendom is a political way of doing things. They politicized religion when they created Christendom. Now, let us go back to Jews. Who are the Hebrews? Well, the Jews, when they went into Egypt, they were actually, Jews are Europeans, and there were Europeans that came from Russia. And when they went into Egypt, they were 70. They had no religion. They had no culture. They had no name called Hebrew. They found Hebrews in Egypt. And Egypt are African. Now, when they left Egypt, they left with a religion. They left with a culture. They left now with a name. They called themselves Hebrews. They then started their religion with Moses. By the way, Moses was born in Egypt. Moses was an African. Moses was born during the Pharaoh Ramesses II in the 19th dynasty. That's when Moses was born. And remember, Moses is the author of the Exodus. The Hebrew religion started with Moses going to Mount Sinai, getting the 10 Commandments. Now, we have shown that the 10 Commandments actually comes from the 147 negative conversions, which were reduced to 42 negative conversions. And within the 42 negative conversions, you will find all the 10 commandments that Moshe came back with from Mount Sinai. In our previous episode, we have shown that there is no evidence, physical evidence, that there was something called Passover in Egypt. There is no physical evidence of that. We have shown that there is no evidence that there was a baby that was brought into any of the Pharaoh's children by one of the Pharaoh's daughters to be raised. Remember the story of Moshe? The mother left her at the stream, and then the daughter of the Pharaoh took her and raised her. There is no evidence of such in Egypt. There is no record of a person called Joseph in Egypt. Remember the story of Joseph? Genesis 41, verse 37. There is no evidence of such Joseph existing in Egypt. We have shown that in our previous episode. Now, having said that, research and evidence shows that Christianity is actually an African way of living. It shows that the Israelites literally went into Egypt, copied a way of living of Africans, wrote it down, and brought it back as a religion. Now, I want to come to South Africa. In South Africa, we had apartheid. One of the main driving forces that forced apartheid to be designed by the Boers in South Africa was religion. After the Anglo-Boer War of 1901, 1902, it ended with the treaty in 1902, which was signed. Now, after the Anglo-Boer War, Afrikaners, they believed in a religion called Calvinism. What is Calvinism? Calvinism is a religion that says this particular ethnic group are the chosen God's people. Like the Jews, they are saying they are God's chosen people. Now the Boers in South Africa, they are saying they are from the Israelites. Out of the 12 tribes of Israel, they are one of the tribes from Israel. And they came here in South Africa. So they are the chosen people here in South Africa. Now, Calvinism in South Africa, because the Boers believe that they are the chosen people, they believed that they cannot live with anyone who is not white. They looked at black people as animals. They had to justify apartheid with their religion called Calvinism. At this point, I'm going to play from their mouths, from the Afrikaners themselves, to define their religion and how their religion forced them to create apartheid, to kill black people, because they say they didn't see black people as human beings. They saw them as animals. So it was easy for them to kill them. They believe that they are God's chosen people. Now the question is, if they are God's chosen people, granted, but in whose land? They are chosen in whose land? Remember, this is not Israel. This is Africa. This is South Africa. So they come here as the chosen people, as people that are from the Israelites, and they get off their ships and boats, which we have shown in our previous episodes, that because Europe was ice, Europe had nothing. So they were forced to build boats and guns so that they can colonize Africa, so that they can get whatever that they think they cannot do without and they don't want to pay for here in South Africa. And they have the nerve to say they are Israelites. We don't have a problem with that, with them being Israelites. But they must do that in Israel, in Europe, not here. You cannot, it's utter arrogance. Utter arrogance. To get off your boat, walk on land that belongs to people, justify stealing their land with religion, create churches, and make people your slaves and enslave their minds to this day and kill them. That is unacceptable. That is unspeakable. And it's happening to date. Religion has been used as a weapon to colonize Africans. You know, when we look at the African way of living, like we said before, we didn't call it Christianity. It is our way of life. If you look at our history, starting from Ethiopia, Egypt, coming down right up until to South Africa, we used to live in our tribes with our kings as our leaders. And even the wars that were fought. Because for Egypt and Ethiopia, for their empires to actually come to an end, it took decades. And the Europeans have always had a way of spying among South Africans and Africans as a whole. There is one thing that they've always had, because they knew their plans was to colonize and enslave. They would send in spies to come and live within us. They knew that we are a people that are humane. We are a God-fearing people. Our principles, our way of life is such that we need to live harmoniously with everyone. That is why in South Africa, at some point, the white people were actually talking about Ubuntu. There was a time, a period in our country when everything it was about Ubuntu. Everyone was talking about Ubuntu, because deep within their minds, they were aware that much as they have colonized us, much as they have stolen our religion, our Christianity, much as they have came into our lives, there is one thing that they couldn't get, and that is our being. That is who we are, naturally, because we are created in God's image, because being good and being humane is us. We do not have to pretend. We do not say we are our brother's keeper, but we keep our brother. We never had old age homes because we never took our mothers to old age homes. We took care of our elders. We lived in extended families, in extended tribes, with our kings as our leaders and our kingsmen as our leaders. And we didn't have poverty. Africa has abundance of everything. They are natural fruits that you get that has got nothing to do with any human planting or agriculture. That is God's given that you find in South Africa. So we've always had plenty. We've never had to be greedy, bringing in systems like capitalism, whereby only a small number, the 1%, controls the economic well-being of the globe, whereas 99% has to see how to survive. We never had systems like those. We lived as a community. We never had children's homes. Nobody abandoned their children. We never used to live in nuclear families. We lived in extended family. We know that a child is being raised by a community, not a couple. So the one thing that the Europeans and the Caucasians couldn't take from us, it is that, because they do not have it. They cannot have it. It is not within them. And with us, it is our natural way of being. If we can remember and go back to who we are, hence our program is called Going Back to the Roots, connecting with your source. Because through these religions, the Caucasians, the Europeans, the settlers, have the land stealers have actually brainwashed us and captured our minds. Now we are slaves in our minds. we're not in chains. You know, it brings me a story of Morana Moshoeshoe. When missionaries went into Lesotho, by then there were no borders in Lesotho. And it was the Roman missionary from the Roman Catholic Church, Anglican from England, and then it was Fora, France, missionaries. The three of them went to speak to the king. And they said, because we are God's chosen people, because that is one of their main things, we need to lead this community that God has given us the authority to lead. So each one of them wanted the king to be one of their own. The Romans wanted him to be Rome. The Anglicans wanted him to be part of the Anglican England, and the France wanted to be one of them from Fora. And the king said to them, I hear you. You are talking about God the Creator, one that created all of us. Because you and I are talking the same language, why do we have to be divided? Why can't we all come together as unity, as one thing, and then lead the flock of God, lead this community that God has trusted us to lead? But the three didn't agree with that. Each one of them wanted him and his community to belong to them. You know, divide and conquer. And then Morana Moshoeshoe said to them, no, guys, I need to consult. Please come tomorrow. He went to his creator. He went into his secret place and he started praying to God and saying, God, I hear these guys. They're talking about you. But what really baffles my mind is that when I ask them that we should be one thing, one unity, they do not want that. Yet they are talking about you. We are talking about one God, but they don't want us to be a unity. And I need you, God, to help me, because I cannot overcome that part. Because if we are all talking about you as the creator, it shouldn't be a problem for us to be under one roof. And because they didn't want to be a unity, he then told them no. He cannot belong to any of them. And as usual, they had to sneak their way in because they are big on spies. They had to send in spies. If you go and read the book of Dr. Chancellor Williams, The Destruction of the African Civilization, he illustrates how Europeans would send in spies within the community, and they would report back to say, these are the loopholes, this is how we can conquer. You know, one of the things that they found when they came into Africa, the Caucasians, when they sent their spies, the spies said to them, you know, there's something that I don't understand about these communities. They have 2,000 languages. They live in different lands. Yet, their customary law, the fundamentals of their customary law is the same. There are no courts here, like the judiciary system. Yet, there is no crime. There is no violence, because we are not a violent people. We are not. So when they evaluated, they said, no, it would be very easy to conquer them, because one downfall that we have, and that we still have up until today, because much as we can look at colonizers, we also have to look at where we are not doing things right and correct. We had inner tribal fights amongst ourselves. And that, the fights that we had amongst ourselves were the loopholes that the European used for us to be conquered. You know, when Africa got its independence, when they went to do the African Union, one of the things that Kwame Nkrumah said was that if we do not unite as Africans, Africa will be colonized again. And today, we can clearly see what Kwame Nkrumah was saying. And we wish, some of us who were not born at that time, we wish that our leaders at that time could have heard what Kwame Nkrumah was saying. Because if Africa had united at the time when he was calling for Africa to unite, we wouldn't be in the state that we are in today. We wouldn't be. Because that was our loophole from the get-go, from the onset. That is the loophole that the Caucasian found, and they utilized it, and they used it to their benefit. They brought in this religion, like in South Africa. You can hear that people went off their dromedaries, and of their dromedaries, they are the chosen people. And they come into a land that is occupied, that has owners, and they steal it. And they say, no, they are God's chosen people. They are Israelites. They are from the 12th tribe of Israel. In whose land? I'm going to repeat that question over and over again until it sticks into the minds of both the Caucasians and the Africans. We need, when they came, they were so bold with their religion. We have the Dutch Reformed Church, which is under Calvinism, of the Africans, of the Boers, out of their fear from the Anglo-Boer War, which again, Africans were in the middle of it. Africans were helping both sides to actually have both sides divide South Africa into two colonies. We had the Transvaal, we had the Cape of Good Hope, which was English, and we had Transvaal, which was predominantly the Boers. We had Parliament in Pretoria, we had Parliament in Cape Town. One country. We helped it. We helped after the Voortrekkers, after they came, settled in Transvaal and signed their peace treaty here in Vereniging. When they realized that they're becoming diminished, again, we were in the middle of it, helping them. That is how much they colonized our minds. The worst thing that the Caucasians and the Europeans and the settlers and the land stealers have done was to colonize the image of God. Was to create a God that is Caucasian. If we are made in the image of God, to you as an African, God must be melanated. God to you must be a reflection of you. And if you are brown like me, because we are not black, black is this t-shirt that I'm wearing. If you are a melanated person and you are brown like me, God then should be brown in your eyes. This God that we were given, that is human, that had to die on the cross, this Trinity that we are given of the Immaculate Conception that existed in Africa way before Jacob went into Egypt. Remember, he went into Egypt when Africa was in its 14th dynasty. And the Immaculate Conception was already there. If you go to Egypt and visit Egypt, you would see on the walls, there's a chapel there that you can find the Immaculate Conception of Horus by Isis. They stole everything that we had. Not only did they steal our land, they also stole our psyches. Because the architecture of apartheid knew that he must just kill the psyche of the African, of the South African, by making sure that they feel that they are inferior. They are not God's chosen people. Which means everything that is dark, they call it black, but we are not black. We are melanated. We are brown. I don't think when you're looking at me at this screen, you are seeing black. There's a difference between my skin and the t-shirt that I'm wearing. Black is this t-shirt. I am brown. I'm melanated. So, what they did, what apartheid did was to kill, was to make sure that everything that is black is bad. It's of the devil. And we believed that. We believed it. We were given an image of a white God. Today, people have literally forgotten that there is God the Creator. It's all about Jesus Christ. And this Jesus Christ that each and every house has a picture of, be it a picture of him on the cross or a picture that was drawn by Michelangelo, Da Vinci, not Michelangelo. Michelangelo drew the 16th chapel. It's Michelangelo. Michelangelo is the one that drew the 16th. Da Vinci is the one that drew the 16th chapel. Michelangelo is the one. I've lost it there. But we are given, Da Vinci actually painted that Last Supper picture that every house has. Michelangelo drew the 16th chapel. Constantine, in the 15th century, made it a point that he calls the councils of Nicaea. He assembled academics from different universities under the James Commission. You know, the King James Version that all Christians love so much, that is the best Bible, the King James. It was called the James Commission, where he called academics from the University of Eton, from Oxford University, you know, those universities in England, Scotland University, and he assembled these men. 47 men were assembled, and these are the men that wrote the Word of God. The very same Word of God that the Calvinists are saying they're Israelites and they're using to dominate South Africa, to say they are the chosen people in South Africa. It's the same word. And we again are following the same words. Can you see how damaged we are? Can you see how much we need to go back and connect with our roots? Can you see how much we need to remember who we are? We've reached a critical point. We do not have leaders in South Africa. We don't. It is my firm belief that when we go back to our roots, when we go back to the way of living that we had, when they got off the dromedaries, they found kings here and their tribes. The very first war that they fought in 1969, the first Khoi War, they were fighting it. Kings and their communities were fighting. Africans have always been a community that lives with their leader who is a king, not a politician. They introduced this Christianity, this Christendom, because it's not Christianity, it's Christendom. We have shown that the difference between Christianity and Christendom is that Christianity is based on spirituality. Christendom is based on politics. The footage that I have played of Calvinism in South Africa is proof that Christendom is politically inclined. It's a political way. Christianity has been politicized. So it's no longer Christianity. It is Christendom. So if you are holding a Bible today and you are talking about this Caucasian Jesus that was given to us, this book that was written by these academics at the James Commission that was assembled by Constantine, know that you are lost. Know that you have been taken out. A tree that has been removed from its roots will surely die. And if we are going to survive as a nation, as communities, we need to go back to our roots and connect. The only way that the tree can actually get minerals for it to grow and to flourish, it's if it's connected to its roots and it's absorbing the minerals that are given from the earth. And we need to do that. We are naturalists. We are co-creating with God. We are made in the image of God, not the picture that we are sold. We need to stop buying that picture. We need to stop. Listen to how bold they were. Dutch Reformed Church, Roman Catholic Church, Anglican Church, Fora. All these churches are named after countries. We were given Christian names. The Home Affairs used to have 2 birth registration books. One that registers you with your Christian name and that one that registers you with your heathen name. Our African names in South Africa were regarded as heathen names. My name is Dipuo, which means it's a heathen name. I don't have a Christian name because I'm not into this Christendom. I'm a Christian. I don't affiliate with Christendom. I'm a spiritual person. Heathen names. 2 registers at the Home Affairs. One for Christian name and one for heathen name. Imagine your African name called heathen. And we follow suit. Even today, you find Africans using their Christian names, their slave names to this day. They even name their children with the slave names. That's how damaged we are. They're not proud of giving their children African names. We think speaking our ethnic languages is not a good thing. Our children can't even speak our own language. They speak English and Afrikaans. And we think it's a good thing. It's a status thing. When you buy a brown doll for your child, white people are like, why is this doll like this? Because it should be white. At a tender age like that, this child is already learning that white is better than brown. At that tender age. And at that age, children don't even know color. If you look at what I've just shown you, that guy was a young guy. And elders put this propaganda into his head that he is a chosen one and he must kill black people. And he was planting bombs to kill black people. Their motto was sabotage. The worst thing that we did when we got our independence and that when we got to be governing South Africa was for us to want high positions. Minister of what, HOD, all these high positions. We left the Caucasians, the Europeans with the day-to-day jobs. Our water supply is being controlled by them. Our electricity is being controlled by them. So it is easy for them to sabotage. Because they are the ones that are operating there. We took the political power and we gave them the economic power. Worst mistake that we've ever done. Worst. We do not have leaders in South Africa. From now on, South Africans, when a leader comes to you and say, let us start this organization, ask your leader, where are you leading me to? We do not ask that questions to our leaders. We blindly follow them. If someone speaks beautiful English, if someone sounds like they know what they're doing, because that's what they are, they sound like, not necessarily they know what they're doing. If someone has charisma and they can stand in front of you and they can mesmerize the crowd, we follow that person. We do not research. We do not ask leader, where are you leading me to? And that is why we find ourselves in the position that we are in. We need to make sure that South Africa survives. We are in the masses. No foreigner is a majority in a foreign country. Caucasians and Europeans are foreigners in our country. Together with their religion, together with their Christendom, they are foreigners in our country. We are the majority. The power lies within us to correct the errors that have been done by the people that we thought were our leaders. We didn't know better then. Now we know. Now we can see what is happening. And it is up to us to protect the future of the next generation. They are looting our minerals. By the time, look at Klerksdorp. Klerksdorp, it's a ghost town. They mined, and now everybody's unemployed in Klerksdorp. Only a very small percentage of employment, and that is government employment. And mind you, the Caucasians are very, very clear on their position. There was a program that I was watching years back on Morning Live. It was an interview between African professionals and the business world, which is Caucasian, which is land stealers. And this white guy was very, very clear that as business people, they are not going to employ blacks. It doesn't matter whether you have qualifications or not. The business is theirs and they're not going to employ you. And the government will never tell them what to do in their businesses. Very clearly so. He didn't mince his words. If SABC can be kind to go back to those archives, it was an interview. It was an African lady representing African professionals with this white land stealer that was representing the Caucasians or the Europeans. And he was very clear. When we talk of unemployment in South Africa, we are talking unemployment amongst Africans, not whites, not Caucasians. It is amongst us, in our land, with our minerals, with our Arab land, which we were forcefully removed from when the Voortrekkers came here in Transvaal. My grandfather was in Meyerton. He was forced to move to top location, then moved to Bophelong. The people in the Val moved from top location and they went to Bophelong, Boipatong, and Sharpeville with the forced removals. It was the Everton that fought with the Everton bus strike, which followed by the Alexander bus strike. They were forcefully removing us from Arab land to go and be smooshed and squatted in small lands. You can imagine, to this day, we still have the Native Land Act of 1913 operating in our country. The Native Land Act that said 87% of the land must go to foreigners, European diasporas, because they are diaspora. When you are outside of the continent of South Africa, of Africa, you are said, they classify you as a diaspora. It's a slogan today, Africa and its diaspora. We must begin to say Europe and its diaspora. If people are going to say that the chosen people of God and they are Israelites, not here. They must do it in Israel and go and face the Palestinians there, because they even occupied that territory. If you look at the history, Palestine itself was in Africa, along the Nile River. That's why I'm saying we need to do research. The first people to colonize Africa were Arabs. Europeans came later, and they were forcing people to be Muslims. To this day, it's still the same. Hasn't changed. We cannot allow future generation to come into such a mess, because it is a mess. Religion is used to continue slavery. It's slavery in the mind. We need to break loose those psychological chains that have captured us, called religion, called Christendom. Let us go back to our roots. It is only a fool that can buy vegetables from their garden. And we wonder why they are so fascinated about our way of living. Have you ever sat down and asked yourself, why was there this big thing about Ubuntu? Because they were fascinated. They don't know Ubuntu. We gave Europeans civilization. They didn't even take a bath. Queen Elizabeth I used to brag that she was the cleanest woman in Europe when she took a bath once a month. We gave them agriculture, we gave them mathematics, we gave them science, we gave them technology, we gave them architecture. We built their universities. Unfortunately, they knew that Africans are a God-fearing people. They knew that Africans are staunch believers in God. They knew that. They knew that we are believers. And they went right into that loophole. And they're still stuck there. If they want to manipulate you, they quickly bring in God and the word of God. Very quickly. You will never hear them bringing in their way of living because they know that their way of living is ungodly. Very ungodly. So they have to, they found a weapon, a psychological weapon, that is religion. And we fell into it because we are believers. All is not said and done. All is not dark and gloom. The power is still within us. We can still change. We can still go back to our way of living. We can still reclaim what we have. Of everything that they stole, they haven't even stolen 1/3 of what we have. So we need to protect our country for future generations. And we need to remember that currently we do not have leaders in South Africa. We don't. We don't have African leaders. If we did, the Native Land Act of 1913 would have been changed when we got 2/3 majority. 2 times. During the term of the late President Nelson Mandela and during the first term of President Mbeki. We had 2/3 majority. We didn't change that clause. Why? We don't have leaders. We don't have leaders. Kings have ruled peacefully for centuries in Africa. Yes, they had their downfall, like any other person. They were human beings. Yes, some did sell their communities for slavery. Yes, we are not going to deny, but it is not all of them. There are kings who fought to the bitter end with their communities in protection of their land and their culture and their religion. And you don't hear about such kings today. And they were there. All that Europeans will focus on and all that their media will focus on is that kings sold their communities for slavery, is that kings helped Europeans to colonize South Africa. It is not all of them. And those kings are long dead. Today, their descendants are the ones that are sitting on the thrones. And their descendants today can read and write. And their descendants today can do research. And their descendants today can know the truth. So we need to move away from a picture of kings that existed in the 1800s and the 1700s when colonizers and land stealers came into our country. European diasporas, when they came into our country with their dromedaries, they didn't have our interests at heart. They came here to loot, to steal, to colonize, to kill. You have seen proof in the footage that I have shown. At this point in time, I'd like to say thank you very much. Please subscribe to our channel and help us to continue giving you this content and this education. Until we meet again in our next episode, thank you and goodbye. Yo, yo.